Hey everyone, before we get into the essay mistakes you should avoid, we wanted to let you know that with your free College Vine account, you can get fast feedback on your college essay with our peer essay review. You'll receive detailed inline edits and actionable steps to improve your essay. If you want to become a better writer, you can also review another student's essay. Visit the link in the description below to sign up and review or submit an essay today.
Hey everyone, I'm Jordan. I'm a sophomore at Harvard, concentrating in physics with secondaries in computer science and education. I'm so excited to be talking to you guys today. I have been seriously editing essays since I would say May or June of this year. So I have read a lot of them. I've left a lot of feedback, and I'm just really excited to share with you guys some common essay mistakes so you guys don't make them in your essay. So today, we're going to cover a whole bunch of different mistakes. The essays can be, or not the essays, the mistakes can be sorted into 3 different categories. So ones that you make before writing, so planning, essay topics, doing research while writing, so structure, writing strategies, drafts, and then after writing, so editing, revising, and submitting. So the first thing, before we get anywhere any further into this presentation, we need to discuss the purpose of the essay and why it actually matters. So your admissions profile is made up of a few things. The primary things, oh, by the way, someone asked, is this recorded? Yes, this will be recorded and uploaded to the College Vine website within 24 hours of its conclusion. So yeah, if you have to leave, don't leave because you won't get your questions answered. But yeah, so your admissions profile is made up of a few things. First is your academics, so your GPA, class rank, course figure, things like that. The next thing is your extracurriculars, so activities, household responsibilities, things like that. Then you have exams, so SAT, ACT, APs, IBs, and subject tests. And then you have essays, so personal statement, supplements. And I just want to reaffirm or validate any kind of worries you have about the exams. I know that College Board has been canceling a lot of their SAT, ACT, APs, and things like that. But do not worry, it's not the end of the world. A lot of schools are going test optional this year, which is really good for you guys. But because these schools are going test optionals and you're basically losing this entire exam section, your essay will mean a lot more. So just keep that in mind. You want to make sure you're doing the most with your essays, that it's going to be really, really solid. I'm sorry if I'm laughing. I just can't believe I went live for so long. Okay, anyway, purpose of the Common App essay. There are like some key things that the Common App essay should do, and just a little bit more details about its role in the admissions process. I see some questions because they're related, so I'll answer them now. Do you recommend taking the subject test? Or when do you recommend taking the subject test? Because I was planning to just take the SAT, especially due to the condition. If you are applying this year, if you are a rising senior, don't worry about subject tests at all. Like, you don't have to worry about them because they're just irrelevant now. Focus on the SAT, ACT. So yeah, but if you are a rising junior, take the subject test in the June of your junior year, I think is like the general standard. Next thing, what kind of household responsibilities would be valid enough to put on a profile? So if you are caring for like a sick, older or younger family member, and it takes up a significant portion of your time, then go ahead. If you have a pet and you have to walk the dog, probably not. Maybe you help out in your family's business. Yeah. So anything that takes a significant portion of your time, you want to put on there. So the essays are the only time admissions officers get to hear from you directly. So you want to make sure you're making the most of this opportunity. So whether the essays are optional or required, you should always complete them to your best ability, unless it's like an additional information section or disciplinary history section. If you don't have any disciplinary history, don't write anything for that essay. There's no point. But if your family was affected by COVID, or if you seriously struggled with something in your high school career, definitely put in the additional information section. But aside from that, your essays like Common App and supplements are worth 25 to 30% of your admissions profile under COVID. So as you can see, that is a lot. So in general, the Common App essay should give the admissions officer a clear sense of who you are. This is the only chance to showcase your personality and how it fits with the campus culture, because again, it's the only time they get to hear from you directly. Without this essay, the whole application would be about you with nothing actually from you, which kind of sucks. So you also want to show how you've grown or remained especially consistent, or any major lessons you've learned and how you've implement them throughout your life. Usually students do this by focusing on a specific moment and how it affected them. And we'll talk a little bit more about essay structures later on. You want to make sure you're being really specific about yourself and your experiences, and always ask yourself the question, could anyone else write this essay? And we'll talk a little bit more about generating unique essay ideas later on. And as always, you want to complete the picture you paint with the rest of your application, because this is a pretty hefty part and it kind of like seals the deal. So a quick recap, the personal statement essay, which is the same thing as Common App essay, matters because one, it's your voice. The admissions officers really get to hear from you for the first and only time ever. Two, individuality. It really helps you stand out because it's your specific story and no one can take that from you. Three, college fit. Like that's what essays are usually about, just how well you fit into a college campus. And then four, holistic admissions. So your essays can make up for a weaker part of your application. And this was true of me. Like my grades, like my classes were really hard, but my grades like weren't like, I didn't have a 99 or anything like that. And I truly think that my strong essays really like helped me stand out and like really sealed the deal for my application, especially to Harvard. Someone's asking, do you recommend submitting the same essay to multiple schools? And I actually have a slide about this. It's kind of towards the end. So if you hang tight, I do want to answer that question just really thoroughly. So hang tight till the end. So before writing, here are some essay mistakes that you can make. And if you have any questions about this before writing section, drop them in the chat as I go through them. So like you won't be kind of like rushed and stuff like that. And I want to make sure I get to your questions. So the first mistake, most obvious, is writing about the wrong thing. So regardless of what you write about, you want to make sure your topic is unique, engaging, and authentic to you. Someone's asking, you just mentioned the personal statement. Does that mean the common application essay tips also work for personal statements? Since you're all applying to undergrad, yeah, personal statement and common app are pretty much the same thing. When you're applying to like grad school or another program, it may be like, personal statement is like, what do you want to do at the school? But since you're applying to a 4-year bachelor's program, like personal statement and common app are the same thing. Okay, back to the slide. So you don't want to write a forced sob story. A lot of students think you have to write a sob story to get in. None of my essays were sob stories because that's just not the kind of person I am. And I got in. So it's completely fine. Don't worry about it. There are a whole bunch of essays that worked, successful essays that are positive. So don't be afraid to use that to your advantage. The next thing is someone else's story. A lot of students will talk about struggles their family member had or some crazy experience their parents went through, which is great if it actually affected you and how you've grown up and if it's led to some like significant change in your life. You don't want to write someone else's story in your essay because we don't actually get to learn about you. The whole point of the essay is for the AOs to learn, AO short for admissions officer, by the way. Like they want to learn who you are and if you would belong on this campus, not about your mom or your grandma or your dad or anything like that. Next thing, like some students just choose not to show growth. And I think it's important to show growth, even if your essay is not about a specific, like, I experienced this and it changed my life forever. Like, it's totally okay if your essay is not that, but you do want to make sure that you are growing as a person in your essay. Because think, like a story, this essay is basically a story, and you want to have a plot and you want to show character development and stuff like that. Without it, the essay just seems really flat. The next and most common mistake is that you choose, and it says I can't hear you well. You keep going in and out. Okay, let me see if I could like do something with my audio. I don't really know. I don't know if I could do much, but hopefully the recording will capture this because I don't want you guys to not hear me good. Can you guys hear me good? Oh my God, I can't believe I did Nicki Minaj reference. I'm sorry about that. So the next and last mistake is writing an essay topic that is way too common. So some essay topics are overdone literally every single year. So I don't want to, it's not impossible to get into a school with a common essay topic. Yeah, y'all are laughing. Oops. Okay, anyway, it's not impossible to get into a school with a common essay topic. It just makes it a lot harder to stand out. And you want to stand out, like that's your goal in the college admissions process. I'm going to talk a little louder. Hopefully my roommates won't hate me. So obviously, like the next natural slide is the most common essay topics. So basically, admissions officers, as I said, they may read like up to thousands of essays in a given application season. So writing about a common topic might hurt you and may keep you from standing out. Someone said, chat anyway. So yeah, period. I'm sorry. So here are the most common essay topics. You have sports and sports related injuries, like try not to do that. Everyone who plays a sport writes about sports. Please do something else. I promise there is more to you than like a basketball. I promise. The next thing is death of a loved one. Like we love your grandma, grandpa, like gender non-conforming grandparent, but we need to make sure that this essay is about you, that we're learning about you and your strengths and who you are, okay? The next thing is divorce or an absent parent. So, especially with absent parents, I feel like a lot of students with absent parents lose a parent early on in their childhood, like obviously, which will affect your life, like going forward. But you want to make sure the essay is taking place more recently. And I'll talk a little bit more about like the timing of the events in your essay later on. And then moving with immigration, I will talk a little bit more about that. Like I'll circle back to it. And then COVID-19, because like we're all living through a pandemic. No one really wants to read about it. But if you really have a transformational story, if something really happened to you, like during quarantine, that wasn't just like, oh, I was sad and I lost all my friends, like definitely talk about it in the additional information section. There is an entire section where you could just write about COVID-19. So if you have a story to tell it there. Don't use your Common App essay for it. As I said earlier, it's not impossible to write a successful essay about one of these topics, but it does make it harder to stand out, and I personally wouldn't take the risk. Going back to moving and immigration. So obviously, or maybe not so obviously, a lot of college applicants, or most of them, are like citizens or not immigrants, like they were born in the United States. So it's not that this essay topic is like super common among the entire applicant pool, but it is very common for either international or immigrant students, just because usually they rehash the same themes, and it's not bad. Like immigrating as a child is a huge thing, but you want to make sure you don't just talk about that. You want to talk about something else that makes you more unique, and that feeds into my next slide about generating unique essay ideas. So the best way to create a really unique essay, oh, thanks for saying you can hear me good. Make sure, can you guys, yeah, I'm not going to make that reference again. Comment your questions, by the way, because I think we're getting somewhat close to the end of this section. But you want to make sure you are making an intersection. Basically, what this means is talking about two aspects of your identity and how they affect each other, because you don't exist in isolation. It's not like I'm on the cheer team one day and then I like do something else the next. Like it's the same person doing all of those things, and they are bound to affect each other, especially in a country as like diverse as the United States. So you can pick a hobby, maybe your race and culture, community, life events, etc., and talk about how they intersect and affect each other. And doing this will decrease the likelihood of someone else having the exact same essay topic as you. So for example, someone saying like, I want to write about sports. It's like, okay, sports are common. Give me something more. So here's an example. As a girl, playing male-dominated sports conflicted with the values of my culture. So a lot of girls playing like basketball, I don't even know, basketball, football, like other male-dominated sports, may write an essay about being a girl in a male-dominated sport. However, when you add in the aspect of your culture and how it like conflicts with the values or something, that will make it a whole lot more unique, because you're talking about the specific things that are unique to you, your life, and your experience. For example, my essay was about my experience as a Black student at a predominantly like white and Asian high school, and how that affected what I did with my title of Miss New York. And as you can see, this like talks about my race, community, and my hobbies all into one thing. So it really like prevents anyone from writing the same essay, even though students may have similar essays, like maybe they like compete in pageants, or maybe they went to a predominantly white or Asian high school. Like I talked about how I started a blog, and like I'm pretty sure not many people started a blog as a result of these experiences. So you want to make sure you're being very, very unique and specific. So to force yourself to come up with these things, like aside from just listing all the things that you do and like drawing connections, is by forcing yourself to come up with 30 essay ideas. So you're in one sitting, you're going to list 10, you're going to take like a 1 minute break, you're going to list 10 more and then 10 more. And by doing this, you force yourself to get past the really like surface level things. You actually want to get to like the meat and potatoes, really unique essay ideas that no one else can write. And once you come up with an essay like topic that you think you're going to do, ask yourself if anyone else could write the essay. And if so, try to modify the topic a little bit. So the next, this is actually, oh, you were Miss New York? Nice. Yeah, I was. I think I'm going to be Miss New York again. We're still waiting on the results. But yeah, so this is like the biggest feedback. If you have me edit your essay, I will probably say it's unfocused. So 650 words is not a lot. So you want to make sure your essay is focused and that you're able to be specific about everything you cover. Unfocused essays try to talk about way too many things, and this really messes up the central idea. No one actually knows what it is. So once you come up with your general essay topic, say you want to talk about sports because you haven't come up with something really specific. You want to make a list of all the possible ways your essay could go. And then you want to choose the one that's most relevant to you and stick to it. So here's my example about sports, because sports is common. So sports can teach you determination and develop your drive to win, but it also could affect your relationship with your parents. Maybe you learned a lot of things from sports. Maybe you learn how to balance sports and other commitments, and maybe sports helped you overcome stage fright. So as you can see, all of these topics, although they are under the umbrella category of sports, are very, very different and could result in completely different essays. So you want to make sure you do this with your essay topic, really sit down and take the time to go through all of it and then pick one, because that will force you to be super specific and we learn more about you, which is good. And you want to make sure, just so you know, if you're writing an essay about sports and any of these are relevant to you, don't pick one of these. Do this exercise for yourself and pick your own, okay? Because it's your essay. You want it to be unique and all about you. The next mistake is not planning enough. And I see some questions coming in, and I will answer that at the end of this section. But the next thing is just not planning enough. So to write an effective essay, you will need to plan a few things out beforehand, because unplanned essays may seem really rushed, disorganized, and unfocused, as we said before, which isn't good. So before you write your first draft, you want to make sure you're asking yourself these questions and answering them with solid, in-depth answers. So the first, how will the essay start and end? If you don't know how it's going to end, well, if you don't know how it's going to start, you can't start. And if you don't know how it's going to end, you're just going to be writing aimlessly, which isn't good. The next thing, what do I want the admissions officers to know about me? Do you want them to know that you're resilient, that you're a doer, that you're an achiever, that you never give up? Most of those are synonyms, but that's okay. You want to make sure you know what you're trying to convey about yourself. The next, what is the central idea of this essay? Without a central idea, you're just going to be writing aimlessly and it's going to be really unfocused. And then, am I answering the prompt? For Common App essays, I say don't write to the prompt, because the last prompt is write whatever you want. But for supplements, you want to make sure you are answering the prompt. And specifically, if you're writing a why this school or why this major supplement, you want to make sure you're doing a lot of research about the school ahead of time. So what is the culture on campus? What specific programs would I be interested in? What makes the school different from the others? And what kinds of qualities are the admissions officers looking for? How can I reflect those qualities in my essays? So for all of these questions, you're going to have answers to them. You may not explicitly include these answers in the essay. You may not include all of them, but they're just going to be more apparent, and they're going to make sure you're on the right track when you are writing. So here is a simple essay planning guide. If you're on your phone or computer or whatever, screenshot this because it's a nice quick outline. So before you write, you want to make sure you know what the goals of the essay are, what you want to share, and what themes you're going to be focused on, so you won't have a crazy mess. The first thing you want to do is start out with a story or a moment. This could be a challenge or a time when you learn something about yourself, someone else, or the world. It doesn't really have to be a moment where you learn something, but it should be an important or impactful moment. And I'll give you an example of an essay that doesn't have that, that's not about them learning, just so you can see like what a first story or hook could look like. Then you obviously want to have a transition about how the two stories are related, and then you want to talk about the second story or moment. And in the transition, it could be like context or something. It could just be any information that would help the admissions officer really understand the story to the fullest extent. But then you want to go into your second story or moment. So a time when you display this knowledge or quality and applied it to your life. This will really help you. Like this second moment shows the admissions officers that you actually changed. Like saying you changed is one thing, showing them is completely different, like a completely different thing. And we're going to talk more about showing and telling and things like that later on. And then you want to end with a wrap up. So how does that experience affect who you are today and who you will be in the future? I'll talk more about how this differs from a traditional conclusion in a 5-paragraph essay structure a little bit later. Okay, mistakes while drafting. So number 4 out of 10 is writing a bad hook. So the hook is the first paragraph of your essay, and its job is to engage the reader and introduce yourself and the topic of your essay. A good hook is memorable and gets the attention of the admissions officer and gets them really excited to read your essay. Like remember, the admissions officers are just people. They want to enjoy themselves. They're reading all these essays. You should just be the like burst of sunshine, and they must be so happy to read your essay. So next thing, just some examples of engaging and disengaging hooks. So engaging hooks be dialogue, imagery, other descriptive language, bold statement, interesting and relevant information. And then disengaging hooks, unrelated quotes. If you're going to start quotes like, I don't know, a dream is a wish your heart makes, or never give up. Don't do that. Unjustified complaints, because no one wants a complainer or a whiner. And then just some word of advice. Don't worry about the first few lines when drafting. If you feel stuck, you could write the rest of the essay and then just come back to edit the hook later. But I would say make sure you edit the hook or come up with some ideas for the hook before you like send your essay to anything else or anyone else. And by the way, there will be a live stream on September 4th, which is this Friday at 7 p.m. about how to write the Harvard University supplement. So if you guys want to join me up in Cambridge, definitely check that out. I would love to see some of your familiar faces. I mean, I don't see your faces now, but I would love to see some of you guys up in Harvard land. I think that'd be really cute. Okay, so next mistake. If you give me your essay to edit, you will probably mess this up, and that's okay. It's telling and not showing. So this may manifest as writing exactly how you talk, which you should not do. When you tell a story to a friend, you probably skip over a lot of the details and just report bigger events. In this essay, you have the 650 words to slow down. Always use descriptive language, not always. Use descriptive language when talking about the specific moments. You want to share details about the setting, your feelings, thought processes, and experiences, and this will just make for a more engaging and unique essay. Okay, someone said, please post on TikTok. As a reminder, I am not posting this live or slides. I don't think maybe I'll post the slides. I'm not sure. But this recording will be available on collegelive.com. But thank you for the reminder. Thank you, guys. Okay. How someone, and just for like telling, not showing, just general advice and why you should show and not tell, is that like how someone reacts to a situation is much more telling about their character than them saying, I have this trait. Like, I am much more likely to believe that you are a leader if you like give me an example of you displaying leadership, if you resolve some conflict or something like that, if you motivated people, than just you saying, I'm a leader, you know? And just like a quick exercise, write your essay as if you're writing a novel and you're the main character. Like during quarantine, I know there's this TikTok trend. We're all trying to figure out who's the main character. And I'm here to tell you that you are the main character, at least in this essay. So going. The first one I wrote by myself, and the second one was actually one of the students whose essays I edited, and his second draft was just so much better. Gabriel, if you're watching this, I'm so proud of you. Okay, so here is a not great example. I have loved cooking ever since I was little. I grew up watching my mother cook the food of my culture, and I want to do the same. I'm a perfectionist, so sometimes, sometimes I spend 5 hours trying to make the perfect flatbread. It says you glitched out for me. Hopefully I'm not glitched out on my phone. I'm watching this live on my phone, by the way, but I don't know. So from this hook, like obviously you see that the topic is about like cooking. So you introduce the topic and yourself, you're a perfectionist, which is like, okay, but it's really distant. Like the reader feels disconnected from the events of the essay and it's doing a lot of telling and not showing. There are other ways to communicate your passion for cooking without explicitly saying it. And a great example of this is the essay or like clip on the right. And this is like literally his words. I did not like do any of this. He's so smart and talented. 315 grams of flour, 2 spoons of yeast, a little bit of sugar and salt, and my secret ingredient, whole milk Greek yogurt. The combination forms a rough, shaggy flatbread dough, which will be rolled into 8-inch rounds and set on the stove with a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. So as you can see, the essay is about cooking, and we see that the student is like very precise because they're giving us the measurements, and they must be passionate about cooking if they have like a secret ingredient. So as you can see, this hook is closely engaged. The reader is right there with the narrator. They're doing a lot of showing and not telling. Like we know they're cooking without them saying it, and it's very unique. Like very few students will actually include a recipe in their essay, you know? So that's pretty good. Next thing, incorrect essay length. And by the way, I think we're getting close to the end of this section, so start leaving your questions about the writing process. So the limit for the Common App essay is 650 words, and most successful essays are above 600 words. My essays were usually at the word limit of 650. So try as hard as you can to get to the word limit. 400 words is definitely too short. How do I contact you to review one of my essays if you do that? My email is happyjordans@gmail.com or jordan.sanchez@collegevine.com. They are at the end of this presentation on the slide, by the way. So 400 words is definitely too short. I would say anything that is less than 600 words is too short. You want to make sure you're using all the words you can. And if it's too short, think like, is your topic too specific in that you ran out of things to say? Are you telling instead of showing? Are you using enough descriptive language? Are you including specific moments or glossing over details? Like you want to make sure that you're not doing any of these things. You know, there's a nice balance between specific and then too specific. You want to be specific enough that no one else can write the essay, but you also don't want to be too specific where that you can only write 300 words worth. And then any essay that is over 650 words is too long. Like literally the Common Application will not let you paste or type more than 650 words. Don't include the title when you are sending your essay, by the way. So just check, are any of your sentences or paragraphs redundant? Are they like repetitive? Are there any moments when you can simplify your wording? Is your essay focused or are you trying to cover too many topics? Is this essay about you, someone else, or both? Do a paragraph by paragraph breakdown and ask like, where are you using the most words? And like, does that align with your goals of the essay? Remember, this all goes back to planning ahead. But let's push on through towards the last section. So mistakes made while editing and submitting. So number 7 is incohesive writing. And this is something that is kind of like in writing 101. These aren't like as common as mistakes. Oh, I see some questions. How do you show being shy/introverted is a positive? By providing specific moments when your introversion or shyness has helped you. So for example, like, I don't know if this is actually true for you. I'm just making this up off of the top of my head. Like introverts may, like, they're not going to speak as much. So they may be a lot more careful about what they say and how they say things. This may be really advantageous in a debate. Maybe you're not going to be the most like vocal person in the debate, but you're definitely going to have something that's like most worthwhile sharing. Or maybe you are really good at having these emotional heart-to-hearts with your friends because you thrive in a like closer like one-on-one setting rather than a group setting. So if you can provide a specific example, I think that would really help. In personal essays, when writing the hooks, is it necessary to provide context? No, not initially. you want to make sure you're providing enough context for the reader to understand what's going on, but you don't have to like burden us with all these details, you know? So, for example, I was reading an essay about a teacher mispronouncing a student's name. Like, all they said was like they gave the line of dialogue. They said, my teacher said, my classmates looked at me. With just those simple phrases, we understand that they're in a classroom and that the teacher is about to mispronounce their name. And that's like all the information we need, you know? So you don't have to give us like every little detail, just enough for us to understand the story. So in cohesive writing, cohesive essays are easier and more enjoyable to read because because when you're reading, like you may notice this when you're reading a book or another essay, if an essay is kind of jumping around and you don't really see how things are connected, instead of focusing on the actual content, you're going to be thinking, how in the world does this actually connect? How is this relevant? Why do I care about this? And that obviously takes attention away from what actually matters, which is your content. So incohesive writing mainly shows up in two ways. The first one is no transitions. So transitions show the reader how different ideas or paragraphs are related, and without them, your reader will wonder why you switch subjects rather than focusing on the content of the essay. Transitions can be as short as like 1 or 2 sentences or as long as a whole paragraph. So it really just depends on how well or obvious the connection is between these two ideas. The second thing is inconsistency. So your essay should be the same point of view and tense throughout. First person past tense is like the safest, most common choice. There's nothing wrong with that. Your writing style should also be consistent. So don't use extremely complicated vocabulary in one paragraph and then very simple language in the next. Just write in your natural style and voice, and you will never go wrong. Do you have any tips for the why us supplements? Yes. Research, research, research. Email professors if you're like that courageous. Well, that was a bad hiccup. Email admissions officers asking them like, what traits are you looking for in a student? But something that I always did was like, and I did this for preparing for my interviews as well. Like, say for Harvard, because obviously that's the one that's most clear to me. Like, I would look for their student organizations and I would find the ones that I really, really liked. And then I would look at who like was advising that. So for example, I'm a figure skater. I used to be a figure skater and I wanted to join the figure skating club. And it turns out that both of the coaches of the figure skating team or club team, whatever, were former Team USA ice skaters, which is like a very, very high honor. And I could talk about that in my interview. And that shows like, I'm really interested like all the great people at Harvard, but don't just focus on individuals because individuals can come and go. So talk about classes, talk about specific programs that you'd be interested in. So just do a lot of research and don't include anything that you can find on the brochure. So obviously, students may have the question, how do I know if my writing is incohesive? So here's a quick exercise, not really quick, but here's an exercise you can do. Once you finish your first or second draft, go paragraph by paragraph and answer these questions in the margins. This is something that I actually do with the essays that I edit. So how does this relate to the previous paragraph? Do I illustrate the connection here or later in the essay? If it's later in the essay, that's okay, but just make sure your reader isn't going too long without knowing like what's going up. What is the main idea of this paragraph? Does it align with the central theme of the essay? What point of view is this written in? What tense? What form is this paragraph written in? Is it narrative or creative? Is it distant or close and engaging? Is it informative or persuasive? Like just make sure it's somewhat consistent throughout. Does this relate to the next paragraph? And are the ideas or themes in this paragraph mentioned somewhere else? That's probably the most important one. Just so you know, answers should be the same or very, very similar in each paragraph. Do you prefer simplicity or bigger vocabulary that I would not normally use in my everyday life? Use simple words. Don't use words that you would not use in your everyday life because chances are you will use them incorrectly. And AOs can tell like if you're just forcing words in there. Like they're not looking for, and I think is this the next slide? No, but I will talk about this a little bit more later. They're not looking for the most beautiful prose or most complicated language ever. They're just looking for a good story, you know? Are you willing to edit the Common App essay for seniors? Yes, I do edit Common App essays. Email me at happyjordans@gmail.com or jordan.sanchez@collegefind.com. My emails are at the end of this presentation, which we're getting close to. So writing in the incorrect form, and I kind of mentioned this earlier with 5-paragraph essays and conclusions. So the Common App essay is most similar to a narrative or memoir, which is a short personal story. And many students have little to no experience writing essays in this form, and that's completely okay. You're not alone. It's really just your teacher's not giving you creative writing assignments, and that's fine. But you should keep in mind that this is not a 5-paragraph essay. You will not have an introduction, nor will you have a conclusion in the traditional sense. Your introduction will be the hook, whether that's like dialogue, descriptive language, imagery, whatever. And the conclusion will just be a nice short wrap up, like literally a few sentences that may talk about where you're going in the future. And remember, this is not a thought piece either, especially when it comes to the prompt that's like, oh, talk about like an idea that you disagree with or a lesson you learned. Like, you shouldn't just be writing a speculative piece. Like, you want to include specific moments of your life. This will ground the essay so it's not just feeling like up in the air and lofty. And it'll also help the reader get to know you better. So to help you get past this and make sure you're writing in the correct form, before you write your first draft, watch videos on YouTube, like literally Google like reading my Common App essay to get an idea of how successful essays are written. I personally have a few of these essays off of my YouTube channel. I think if you look like Happy Jordan or the Queen Next Door Harvard, like it'll come up. But I read my essays. A whole bunch of students have read their essays. Binge watch these. Don't copy their essays. Don't copy their language. It's just for you to get an idea of how the essays should go. So then the next thing, this kind of aligns with Asta's question about language. Not sounding like yourself is a big, big issue. So the admissions officer is not expecting, nor do they want to read the most beautiful prose, the most intelligent language. They want to read an essay by you and about you. So always write your essay. Like, that shouldn't even be a question. So write the essay yourself and don't include words you don't use regularly. You may misuse a word if you use a thesaurus. I have done that too. You don't need big fancy words to impress the admissions officers. Your character and your story will impress them for you. And along the same thread, your essay should center around who you are today. Like, it's okay to write about something that happened in elementary or middle school, but the bulk of the essay should have happened between 10th and 12th grade ideally. Like, if you're talking about an event that happened in middle or elementary school, that can be your hook. That could be a really short moment. Maybe you could talk about, my parents have always done this growing up. But you don't want to make that the whole essay, because the admissions team wants to accept who you are now, today. You're going on campus next fall. They don't want to know who you were like 8 years ago, unless it's like relevant to who you are today. And then the last one, I actually have a little bonus, so don't hop off too fast. But what the 10th mistake I have is reusing the wrong essays. So throughout the application process, you will write like several essays. You'll have personal statements, supplements, and some, but not all of these can be used. When I was applying, I applied to 17 schools, by the way. Like, I wrote 10,000 words worth of supplements, which is a lot, but some of those were reused. So admissions officers can tell when you're reusing an essay you shouldn't reuse. It shows carelessness, lack of interest in the school, and admissions officers want to accept students who are likely to attend. They want to accept students who want to go. So before writing any of the supplements, copy and paste all of the prompts you have to write in a single Google Doc, and then take inventory of how many essays you'll actually have to write and how many you can reuse. Well, Jordan, which essays can I reuse? Well, I'm glad you asked, because here's a slide explaining which ones you can reuse. If I were you, I would screenshot this slide because it's just a nice, like, quick resource. So your Common App or personal statement, yes, always reuse this, unless your essay talks about why you're interested in your major, and the college you're applying to has a supplement asking about your academic interests, because you don't want to repeat yourself throughout the application. So in this case, I would say use a modified version of your original Common App essay as a supplement, and then write a new, completely unrelated Common App essay. For me, I just chose not to write about my major in any of my essays unless they explicitly asked me, because it's just not cute. How will admissions officers know an essay is reused? So this kind of goes to like why this school. So let's think about the Ivies, like Harvard, Yale, and Princeton specifically. All of those are liberal arts colleges in like college towns, and they have like specific campus cultures that are like kind of somewhat similar. They don't have Greek life. Like, those are all very basic similarities. If you're writing an essay that's like, say this is some kid's essay. I want to go to Harvard because they have amazing professors. I love the housing system. I think it really fosters community amongst the students. The grass is always green. The campus is beautiful and it's not too far from home. There isn't Greek life. They have all these other opportunities. They have great undergraduate research programs. Like an admissions officer will know that you're reusing that essay because that's true of Harvard and Yale and Princeton and Dartmouth and like all these other places. An essay that you cannot reuse, an essay that they know is unique, is like, I want to go to Brown University because Jim Gates teaches there. Jim Gates teaches a course or does research on supersymmetry. I'm really interested in physics. Brown also has a specific program called STARS that supports underrepresented minorities going into STEM. So both of those, one of those is true of Brown, the other one isn't, but that was just like a random example. You see, I'm mentioning specific professors. It would be even better if I mentioned a specific course, like say K through 12 equity and excellence. Like that's a course here at Harvard. Like if I'm mentioning a specific course, a professor and a program, like that's something that you cannot reuse. And the admissions officer knows that. So why this school, like always be careful with that. Why this major, you can use some parts of it, but you should also include information about the specific program each college offers to support students in that major. Elaborate on an extracurricular. Yeah, you can always use that one. Unique aspects about your background and contributions to campus. You can use some parts of it, but not all. Just make sure being specific about the programs you participate in on campus. Make sure you start to comment your questions, by the way, because we're getting towards the end. And then extremely open-ended prompts, you can reuse the essay, but change the college's name if you mention it. Like my U Chicago and Harvard essay were the same. So I had to like change U Chicago to Harvard. And then bonus, always proofread your work. Like the essays are a super important part of your application. As we said, it's 25 to 30%. And they are the last thing you can control. So you should treat them as such. You should proofread and have your English teacher proofread your essay for punctuation and grammar mistakes, spelling, incorrect or incomplete sentences, run-on sentences, switching tenses, etc. If incorporating dialogue into your essay, you should always start a new paragraph every time there's a new speaker. I've noticed, I've been editing a lot of essays, I know, so that's something not a lot of students know. And just not proofreading your work shows a lack of effort and care. So you want to start and finish your essays early to avoid feeling rushed. Thank you guys so much for listening. It's 9 o'clock. My bedtime is 9:30, so I'm about to hop off. The recording for this will be uploaded within 24 hours of this ending. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me. It's so nice talking to you guys.